Assalamualaikum and good greetings. So I will be watching this video titled 10 Surprising Things Islam Says About Women. Another video by FTD Facts. So we will see how surprising it will be for a Muslim to listen to these facts. So without further ado, let's watch this video.
When many people think of Muslim women, the common stereotype that pops in the mind is the portrayal of a mysterious veiled woman who is oppressed. However, according to Muslim tradition as well as the Quran, women are portrayed in a much different light. Hey guys, welcome back to FTD Facts. My name is Theyre Partners, and for this episode, I'm going to be taking a look at 10 surprising things that Islam says about women. There's a lot of positive things about women that we're going to just dive into right now. So starting at number 10, they're partners with men. So women are portrayed positively in the Quran as well as the Hadith, and the Quran frequently refers to women alongside men, and both are described as being friends and partners in the faith. Now in one passage in the Quran, Surah 9 verses 71, it says, "The believing men and the believing women are allies of one another. They enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong, and establish prayer and give zakah and obey Allah and His Messenger. Those Allah will have mercy upon them. Indeed, Allah is exalted in might and wise." Number 9 brings us the rights to property. So Muslim women were granted the right to own, inherit, as well as sell their own property as they saw fit. They were also allowed to reject forced marriages as well as keep their own names and identities after marriage. They could also initiate divorce and even get an education, and this goes back to the 7th century. So this is completely in contrast to the conditions affecting many women in certain parts of the world today. And the Prophet Muhammad was recorded to have said these words: "To seek knowledge is an obligation on every Muslim, male and female." Women are also described as spiritual equals. In the Quran, Surah 4 verses 1, it says, "O mankind, be mindful of your duty to your Lord, who created you from a single being, and from it created its mate, and from the two of them has scattered countless men and women throughout the earth. Fear God, in whose name you demand your rights of one another, and be mindful of your duty towards the wombs that bore you. God is ever watching over you." So one of the things that this passage highlights is that women are considered to be spiritual equals with men, as well as they have the same religious duties. Now let's talk about the role in the home for women. Islam supports the traditional view of how work is divided when it comes to women. Women assume the main responsibilities for the house, while men are more responsible for the financial support. They go out, they do the work and all of that. But there's a big difference here. In Islam, motherhood as well as homemaking, it's not considered to be less important or rewarding than having a professional career. Motherhood is one of the most important professions, as a matter of fact, and it's something that is very honorable. So yes, of course, a lot goes into raising a child. So if a woman wants to do that rather than hiring nannies and all of that, they definitely can do that, and it's something that you shouldn't even look down on. Number 6.
So that is interesting because the foundation of the discussion with regard to that is the one that we rarely discuss, I think. Right? Why is it that, meaning for example, those who are fighting for a woman's right to work. I'm not saying it's not a right to work, right? But the word like woman can do what men can do. Woman can be as successful as men can be successful as, something like that. Why is the benchmark always on the men, right? So that foundation itself is something that causes, I think, what comes after, right? So the contribution, the reward, the level of success of raising the children, or for example housewife, full-time housewife, right, is not being seen by many generally as such a huge thing, such a huge contribution, etc. I think it subconsciously, because we look at it in terms of materialistic worldview or something, and hence it doesn't pay, it doesn't directly contribute to the economy. I don't know, that it seems like you're doing nothing, you are contribute. So I think that is where for Muslim, unfortunately, also have subconsciously subscribe to that worldview, hence feeling down, etc., feeling less accomplished, etc., that if they do that, right? I'm not saying women must do that. I'm saying that the way we look at things sometimes need to be re-evaluated, right? Especially for a Muslim that believe this world is temporary and this is pathway to the hereafter, right? So what is the biggest role that you can play, and then things will change dramatically from that point onwards, right? My opinion.
This brings us feminine individuality. Kind of alluded to this a little bit based on some of the points that I mentioned. But in Islam, femininity is very much appreciated, and Muslim women may seek a higher education if they want to, and they can also work outside of the home, or they can volunteer in various different services that are going to benefit the community, as long as their primary responsibilities are looked after. Now, any money that a Muslim woman earns is her own to spend as she sees fit, but in Islamic tradition, really, the man is responsible for maintaining the family and supporting the family financially. Of course, women can do that too, but in Islam, the weight of each is just different, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in this episode. But before I get into those points though, if you're enjoying this episode so far, be sure to leave a like on this video. It really helps more and more people see our episodes over time. And if this is your first time here at the channel, go ahead, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. That way you can hang out with us here on FTD Facts every single week. We post videos daily, so you can always learn something new about our world, the religions, the culture, and the people that live on our planet. So if those topics interest you, stay a while here on FTD Facts. We'll keep you busy, we'll keep your mind occupied, trust me. Alright, so let's move on to number 5. Let's talk about marriage rights. So, although Muslim parents traditionally play a very important role in arranging different marriages, as well as helping to find marriage partners for their children, both husband and wife must freely agree to the marriage. The Prophet Muhammad did grant the right for marriage annulments to girls who had been forced into marriages against their will. And you see, the relationship between husband and wife in Islam is really an interdependent one, and it's based on love and peace. As a matter of fact, in the Quran it says this, "And of his signs is this, he created spouses for you from among yourselves, that you might find comfort in them, and he put between you love and mercy. Surely there are signs in that for people who reflect." And that's found in Surah 30 verses 21. Moving on now to number 4, women are described as being a grade below men. So what does this actually mean? Well, in the Quran, Surah 4 verses 34, men are described as being a grade above women, but in the matters of law, religion, and society. Husbands are instructors as well as, in a sense, supervisors of their wives. And you know, a wife can be in charge of the home, but her husband does have final say over everything pretty much. Men are also usually held accountable for their wives' actions as well. So since men are responsible for the financial support of their family, they also inherit twice of what a woman would inherit because of their responsibility to their wives and to their family. So in the religion of Islam, they do try to keep everything fair between the man and the woman. Let's talk about divorce.
So that is one topic that can be a touchy subject, to some, or a point to attack for some, right? So but to give it a clear picture, it does need a longer discussion, I think, to look at the whole ecosystem for you to understand why that fits. If you just zoom in into one thing without looking at the ecosystem, you might not see the wisdom behind any specific things, right? So I leave it at that. We'll need to discuss at length if that is a thing need to be discussed.
Divorcing Muslim women. Now, divorcing Muslim women who did not work outside of their home after marriage do not have a claim on the collective wealth of the couple under Islamic law, except for the amount of money or property that the man agrees to pay her before the woman signs the marriage contract. In the Quran, you'll find this passage in Surah 4 verses 12, and it says, "And for you is half of what your wives leave if they have no child. But if they have a child, for you is 1/4 of what they leave, after any bequest they may have made or debt. And for the wives is 1/4 if you leave no child, but if you leave a child, then for them is 1/8 of what you leave, after any bequest you may have made or debt. And if a man or woman leaves neither ascendants nor descendants, but has a brother or a sister, then for each one of them is a sixth. But if they are more than two, they share a third after any bequest which was made or debt, as long as there's no detriment caused. This is an ordinance from Allah, and Allah is knowing and forbearing." Now next up, let's talk about...
So that is a very specific ruling about inheritance. Yeah. So it's going to be quite long to discuss about that. Even the verse in the Quran about inheritance can be quite long if you look, because it is very specific in various conditions what should be the way it is being distributed, right?
Intimacy at number 2. Women are to be 100% respected in intimate acts as well. The Prophet Muhammad had underlined the importance of foreplay as well as emotional intimacy in sexual relations, as the following hadith outlines. So the Prophet Muhammad said, "Not one of you should fall upon his wife like an animal, but let there first be a messenger between you." And what is that messenger, they asked? And the Prophet Muhammad replied, "Kisses and words." And finally,
I'm not sure how many of those, I'm assuming most Muslim knows about husband should, based on the hadith, should, foreplay. I do not know how to make that in a sentence, but that should be your practice, right? So foreplay is part of your marriage, right? That's your duty in a sense, right? I'm not sure whether that is known from outside. That I'm not sure. Some might joke that perhaps that's why most of those who convert into Islam are women, right? Because I don't know. So, but yeah, that is a thing. That is a thing that I'm not I do wonder how many people have heard about that.
at number 1, let's talk about there being a reward in childcare. Now, there's one passage that says, "A woman questioned the Prophet Muhammad, 'Men go to war and have a great reward for that. So what do women have?' He answered, 'When a woman is pregnant, she has the reward of someone who spends the whole night praying and the whole day fasting. When the contractions strike her, no one knows how much reward God gives her for having to go through this. And when she delivers her child, then for every suck it draws from her, she receives a reward for keeping a soul alive." That passage is taken from the Hadith, and in the Quran, Surah 2, verses 233, it also says this: "Mothers may breastfeed their children 2 complete years for whoever wishes to complete the nursing period. Upon the father is the mother's provision and their clothing according to what is acceptable. No person is charged with more than his capacity. No mother should be harmed through her child, and no father through his child. And upon the father's heir is a duty like that of the father. And if they both desire weaning through mutual consent from both of them and consolation, there is no blame upon either of them. And if you wish to have your children nursed by a substitute, there is no blame upon you as long as you give payment according to what is acceptable. And fear Allah and know that Allah is seeing of what you do." Alright guys, so that was a brief look at 10 surprising things that Islam says about women. Really hope that this was very eye-opening and that it helped to dismiss some of the stereotypes that you may have had about women in Islam. Be sure to leave your thoughts and comments down below. Join in on the conversation. Also, I'm going to leave you with a recommended episode. It's going to be at this end screen, so tap the annotation once you see it. I'm going to get out of here and work on some more episodes for you guys. So until next time, stay awesome, stay educated, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, yeah. So on the last point, when he mentioned about the reward that will be given to the mother throughout the pregnancy and then afterwards, such a huge reward, right? Because when I heard that, of course we know about that, Muslim knows about that. Sometimes we do need to be reminded that all of this, there's meaning, if you are familiar with Islamic teaching, right, there's a lot of rewards to the things that sometimes we do not put importance on, right? But what came to mind is, for example, there are other religions that says pregnancy for women in a totally different light, right? For example, some believe that it is some sort of punishment, goes back to the story of Adam and Eve, for example, right? So Islam sees it totally in a different way, right? That is not a punishment, that is a fact of life, and it's a test, and if you go about it in the best way possible, you'll be rewarded handsomely. And of course men cannot go through that, right? Because it is the nature Allah have created, that woman is the one that goes through that process, right? So and the reward every time, every single time, every single even contraction, etc., it will be rewarded, right? So it's totally different light than to see it as a pure burden or even a punishment, you know, which is such a negative connotation there. Alright, so how many of this is a surprising thing to you, right? By the way, I have to stop now, I think. I'm not sure whether the mic actually catch the sound of my belly grumbling because it's hungry. It's the middle of the night here. I'm not sure also if you realize that my eyes is kind of reddish because I'm so tired looking at screen of doing this work, marking, etc. I'm just taking a break for a short while to just watch some video and do some reaction. Hopefully it has been a meaningful one. Thank you for watching. See you next time.